So welcome to the first budget development committee meeting of the Peel District School Board for this school year. So I'm Jasper Gill, Chief Operating Officer and Associate Director of Operations and Equity of Access. As per the Education Act, I'm acting as the designate of the Director of Education and will preside over the meeting until there is a chair and vice chair elected. I now call this meeting to order. We will now have the land acknowledgement.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
The first order of business is the election of the chair and vice chair. So these elections are for 1 year term. I will now receive nominations for the position of chair. Please raise your hand if you wish to put forward a nomination. Please also note that a trustee may nominate themselves. Yes, Trustee Bailey.
I'd like to nominate Trustee McDonald.
Which one?
There's only one here. Trustee Brad McDonald.
We gotta get that on the record.
Any other nomination?
Job wasting somebody else wants it.
So I have received one nomination for Trustee McDonald to serve as the chair of the committee. Again, are there any other trustees who wish to serve as the chair of the committee? So I have a motion from Trustee Bailey to appoint Trustee B. McDonald as chair of the Budget Development Committee. Do I have a seconder for this motion?
I will.
Okay. Trustee King. Do you, Trustee B. McDonald, accept this nomination?
Yes.
May I now have a motion that the nomination be closed? Moved by Trustee Davies, and second by Trustee Clark. So as there is only one nomination for the chair of the Budget Development Committee, Trustee B. McDonald is acclaimed in the position. So congratulate Trustee B.
Already.
So we will follow the same process for the election of each of the vice chair. So I will now receive nominations for the position of vice chair. This Trustee B.
I'd like to nominate Carla Bailey for vice chair.
So I have received one nomination for Trustee Carla Bailey to serve as the vice chair of the committee. Are there any other trustees who wish to serve as the vice chair of? So I have a motion from Trustee B. McDonald 2 point, trustee Bailey as the vice chair of the budget development committee. Do I have a second advice? Yes. Okay, trustee Davis. Do you, trustee Bailey, accept the nomination? Again, there is only one nomination. Oh, I have to close the nomination. May I now have a motion that the nomination for the vice chair be closed? Moved by trustee Clark. Trustee B. McDonald second. So now that, because we only have one nomination for the vice chair of the budget committee, the trustee Bailey is acclaimed in the petition. So congratulations, trustee Bailey. All right, I will hand over to the chair now.
I'll move. Yeah.
You don't want?
Well, I voted for you.
No pressure.
So you can spread out now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna join. Let's get started. So the meeting's already been called to order. We've gone through that, and I appreciate your support. And this next budget season, and I look forward to all your cooperation on this to make sure we provide the best budget we possibly can for our students. So I'd like to go to item 4, for approval of the agenda. Would someone like to put the agenda on the floor? Trustee Davies, trustee Clark seconded. Any comments or questions to the agenda? All those in favor of the agenda? So passed. Move on to item 5, a declaration of conflict of interest. Do we have any conflict of interest today? Seeing none, we'll move on to staff reports. So I'm going to move on to 6.1, the budget development timetable. So it'll be presented by our Associate Director, Chas Belgiel.
So through you, thank you, Chair McDonald, and through you, Chair McDonald. Okay, sure. So usually in April, the school boards expect that the ministry will announce the funding for the following school year. As part of that funding announcement, they also announce any changes they are making to the funding at that point. But so far this year, because of the provincial election, they're behind in that. What we have heard is that provincially, they will be announcing the budget next week. So usually it's a week or so later that we will get from the ministry the funding for the school board. So hopefully in a couple of weeks we will have that funding information from the ministry. As we do each year for the last number of years, we want to have provide the public and in general, not only the public but also our own staff, school staff, and public and the parents, families, the chance to provide their input into the budget development process. So we normally have a public consultation survey that was released a week or so ago. So we are in the process of collecting that information and not this one, but our next budget development committee meeting, we will be sharing the results of that public consultation service with this committee. So today is our first meeting of the committee. The focus for this one is on 2 items. One is, as I mentioned, the enrollment projections that our planning staff will share with the committee, and also the input from our association. So they will have an opportunity to provide their input as we work through the budget department and budget for next school year. Then at the May 7th PPFB meeting, usually if an individual wants to come and delegate the board in regards to the budget, next year's budget, they will have the opportunity. I'm not aware of any delegation that are coming, but we are definitely, we always provide an opportunity for someone if they want to come and delegate. The board is mainly related to providing their input into the budget. So there's an opportunity, but I'm not aware that there is any delegation for why actually the meeting is tomorrow. And then the next meeting of the budget development committee will be on May 27th. So we're hoping that the ministry will announce the funding and that we will be in that meeting, that we will be able to provide the committee some high level information on if the ministry is making any changes or what kind of funding that we're expecting for next year. We're hoping to do that, as well as we'll share the public consultation survey results at that point as well. Then we will have the third meeting of this committee will be on June 2nd. The focus of that meeting will be presentation of the business cases by various members of the senior team, as well as we will provide the summary of the revenues based on the ministry's funding announcement, as well as the expenses based on the staffing that has already been announced for the next school year, and we will share that information with this committee. And then subsequent to that, right after that meeting, there is a trustee information session. In that one, we will provide any further input to that trustees on the business cases, and hoping to receive some feedback on those business cases in that meeting on June 2nd. So once we have that, we will, our finance staff works on putting together a draft budget, and then on June 19th, we are hoping to go through page by page. That's what I call page by page through the draft budget book, and respond to any questions the trustees may have at that point. And then based on the feedback we will receive on that day, we will finalize our draft budget, and we are hoping to present that to the special board meeting on July 2nd. So Mr. Chair, that is the schedule for the budget development for next school year. I'm happy to respond to your questions.
Great, let's put this on the floor. Trustee Daly puts it on the floor, second by Trustee Cameron. We have some questions. I think Stan had his hand up first, so we'll go with you.
Thank you. Thanks for that advanced look at those dates, and I see many of them are populated in our calendars already. But the challenge always is, it's not new, but we're talking about a meeting in any time in the last 2 weeks of June is when we are full of graduation ceremonies in our calendar. So June 19th is a problem for me. We have two. We have one in the morning, not that would affect the afternoon or evening meeting, but the adult ed is in the morning, and I have a calendar grad ceremony in the evening that crosses over. It's at 6 o'clock, and our meeting trustee info sessions at 5:30. So if nobody else is bothered by that, it doesn't matter. You still have quorum, but I won't be here. I can't leave a grad ceremony to come to almost any other meeting. So,
okay. A response or just a statement?
Just a statement.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Cameron. I think, Jeff, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay, so Trustee Bailey.
Adding to that, Trustee Promoli and I are in another province in July because we are attending a conference.
July 2nd.
July 2nd.
Okay. You can attend the meeting virtually.
We don't know what the
activity.
The activities are. We don't have the
Okay. Well, we will still have quorum July 2nd.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
We have to get done, and it's through the chair, by the way. This is important that we have to get it done. So
I think our number one responsibility as trustees is passing the budget.
Yeah.
So that's all I will say.
Yeah.
And we can't make everything. I travel, I do business, so you see me online, and I understand, and stuff. And this date's been set out. I think we had notification 4 months ago. So anyway, if quorum does become a problem, then there'll have to be looked at changes to it. But thank you for the input on that, and that's you've taken back with staff too. Trustee Clark, you have a question.
Yes, through you, Chair. I'm pretty sure we already know the answer to this, but I feel like I should ask, when will we get the budget that, the budget when we are expected to propose, what is it, this is,
Okay, so
June 19th.
Yeah.
Like, when do we get that information? Like same normal time ahead of a meeting, like Saturday?
Yeah,
type of thing? Yeah.
yes.
Oh, okay.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, absolutely. And so just so, to recap it, the budgets, we'll go through a process, but on the second is when we get all the budget cases where we get to decide if we want to add stuff or discuss it as trustees. Then that go away and they give us a preliminary budget on the 19th. And they go through it page by page, which is a long review, but it gives us answers all the questions. You can attend that remotely or in person. But between then, the 19th to the 2nd, then the budget is either changed based on our comments or inputs, or it's made official, and we then go to the 2nd. And remember, we can make changes at the meeting of July 2nd. We can put motions on the floor and make, make changes to the budget at that time. If you have support, then, you can do that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Great. Any other questions? I just have a question, Associate Director Gill, that, you've got one indication of delegations, but I assume we can have delegates at all our budget committee meetings, can't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, if the chair, if I can add, means even if somebody approaches us on the June meeting, we're not going to say no. So yes, as well as at the budget vote.
Right.
Yes.
So would it be nice to put in this document, since it's going to be released, that we should put an asterisk at the meetings and delegations available?
Sure.
Because, some aren't, right? The one of the meetings, the case input, the second meeting, right after the budget, that's not part of it. And the June 19th, that's not part of it. But they can, so maybe we can put stars in the meetings they could. If that's
Sure.
helpful for the community.
Yeah, we can do that. Definitely.
Great, thank you so much. Trustee Alls.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was gonna hold my question, but you prompted it with your comment on the public consultation. How are we letting the public know that they have this opportunity? Do we connect directly with schools to let them inform the parent councils, or are we going through any community organizations that might have a vested interest, or stakeholders that might want to, I'm thinking of the C activity plan, the Vision, Autism Ontario, the myriad of stakeholders that we partner with?
Okay. So through you, Chair McDonald, we do it a number of ways. One is obviously it's on our website. Second, I think there is a newsletter which is going to go to all families. It's there. So we want to make sure we are letting all families know that there's opportunity.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No more questions.
Great, thank you. Trustee Clark, you have another question?
No.
Okay, perfect. Any more questions? Seeing no questions, we have it on the floor. So let's receipt of this oral report. All those in favor? So passed. So we'll move on to our second item, 6.2. It's an enrollment projection from our planning department. Who's going to be speaking on behalf?
It will be Julian Weigel and myself, Alexander Bleicher.
Okay, please proceed.
Through you, Chair McDonald, we'll get right into it here. So this first table here, we've broken it out by panel. So we're looking at a 5-year history, as well as this year and what we're projecting for next year. So importantly, for next year, we're looking at a further decline in elementary enrollment of roughly 1,400 students, budget over budget. We've included all of this history just so you can see our peak enrollment back in 2019, 2020 in the elementary panel was over 115,000 we're looking at 104,000 elementary students for next year. So we're projected to be down about 11,000 students over the last 6-7 years. Some of the conditions are housing affordability. Also, the pandemic, of course, expedited some of the trends that we were already seeing. So it's not good news again, unfortunately, for the elementary. This next slide is just a graphical representation of that previous table. So it just defines the in a bar graph. This year, the problem that we're running into each and every year is the reduction in our K enrollments. So at our peak, we were registering over 10,000 kindergarten students per year. Right now, we only have just over 9,000 JK enrollments. So as that smaller cohort continues to feed through, it affects us each and every year unless we recover our JK enrollments. And this is a history as well as a projection going a little bit more forward. It's broken down by total as well as municipality. So we do unfortunately project elementary enrollment to continue to decline over the next 5-6 years. Again, because it's in the K in primary, it's going to feed through our junior intermediate grades before we start to see the recovery. Later on, Julian will show you some of the growth areas that will explain the growth you see sort of in years 6 to 10. But I guess that is somewhat good news that if this isn't permanent, we do anticipate returning to a growth period again. It's just maybe longer than we would have hoped, beyond sort of 6 years. We're in a little bit of lull when it comes to new development across the region. There are some hot spots, but overall, it's less development growth in greenfields than we would have been used to in previous years. So the same thing for secondary. It's been relatively stable over the last 5 years. And we're actually looking at a small growth for next year budget over budget. Given the size of our grade 8 cohorts that have been moving into secondary panel, more growth was possible. There were some areas in the board where we didn't retain as many grade 8 students as maybe we would have liked, but overall it is more stable. However, as those smaller cohorts do feed themselves through in elementary, it will ultimately hit us at secondary eventually. And we can see that on the next graph here. So again, overall, we're pretty stable over the last while, looking at a slight growth for next year, but then going forward after that, we are looking at a decline in Brampton and Mississauga. We are looking at a growth in secondary panel in Caledon as the area along the south of Caledon along Mayfield Road does continue to develop. I'll pass it over to Julian now to go over some mapping for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. As Alex went over, while enrollment is declining currently, in the long term, we are expecting enrollment growth to return. This is due to several areas of new housing development all across the board. The map on the screen highlights the areas of growth across the city of Mississauga. The majority of new growth in Mississauga is all infill development, focusing on high-rise condo projects. Some of the key areas where we're seeing construction currently underway is the city center community, Brightwater down in Port Credit, and the Lakeview Village area down in southeast Mississauga. The slide on the screen in front of you shows the growth areas in Brampton. The green areas are the greenfield developments where we see traditional homes constructed. The Heritage Heights community on the west side of the city, as well as the Castlemore East community on the east side, are the two areas where we expect to see significant home construction over the coming years. Brampton also has several areas of intensification occurring in the central area, mostly around Queen Street. These areas are highlighted in purple on the map and will all also be high-rise condo projects. Development in this area is underway, however, intensification is quite slow and will continue for the next 20 to 30 years approximately. Caledon is primarily all greenfield development concentrated in the south area of the town, mostly south of the future Highway 413. Several areas on the map are currently under construction, including the Mayfield West Phase 2 area and within the Caledon East community. As more of these growth areas begin construction, it's expected that Caledon will become the leader for new housing enrollment growth for the board.
Please don't tell us that.
So we also wanted to highlight another area that we're seeing trend that's been going on. So with the decline in enrollment that we're seeing, ensuring that we retain students within the board year over year is very important to sustaining enrollment. So a key transition for students is from grade 8 to grade 9, where students attend secondary school. Many students, however, are choosing to attend a non-BDSP school. Many factors for this, including the geographic location of schools, as well as the programs offered. The map on the screen is showing for the city of Mississauga, where we're seeing loss of grade 8 students. Areas in darker red and purple are the areas with the greatest loss. So we're seeing the greatest loss mostly in central Mississauga, along with the Meadowville and Churchill Meadows community. However, in contrast, the areas south of the QEW, we do see very high retention rates. Similar slide for Brampton. Generally speaking, most of the loss we're seeing on the west side of the city and a few pockets on the east side. However, central Brampton, we do see quite high retention rates in that area. And finally, Caledon, being mostly rural, is a fairly low density of students. That's why most of the map is white. Just don't have it's many students in some of those areas. However, two key areas that we wanted to highlight: Southfield Village community in the south, as well as Caledon East. Caledon East is a bit unique in that they do have a Catholic school right in the town, explaining most of that loss. However, the Bolton community, we do see fairly high retention rates. That concludes our presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. So let's put this on the floor. Trustee Davies, Trustee, probably can't, Trustee Bailey, second that. Now that's on the floor, do we have any comments or questions? Here, Trustee Davies.
I was just wondering if the Catholic board is also experiencing a loss in enrollment at the elementary level.
So yes, the answer is yes, through you, Chair McDonald. The Catholic board was actually seeing decline pre-pandemic, whereas ours really started post-pandemic. So their decline is expedited a little bit, and we've just joined them.
Trustee Pomoli.
How much do we know about how many of our students are leaving to go towards the Catholic board, and how many are maybe leaving their board to come in our direction, versus how many families are just leaving the area in general when it gets to grade 9?
Through your chair, for grade 8 to grade 9, the majority of the loss we're seeing is to the Catholic board. There is a percentage of students that do leave Peel region as a whole, and that percentage has been increasing, mostly with the housing costs. We do get students back from the Catholic board grade 8 to grade 9 as well, mostly around the location of our schools, but it's not nearly the same number that we're losing.
So just to add to what Julian had mentioned, So roughly, yeah, I mean, it changes a little bit year over year. We have around 2,500 students who move from our board to the Catholic, and we get around 1,000. So it's typically around 1,500, 1,600 is the net loss. So that's why we are really focusing on the retention. On the retention that I think we're now looking at where the losses are, and we're working with them because those losses, the net loss of the students, is different from different school to school for different reasons. So that's why we keep going down and looking at what's happening at the school. Why are we losing? Our students are going to the Catholic and not staying with us like grade 9. So we continue to do the work on there because we know that this lower number of kindergarten students, because they're working through those grades, eventually they'll go to the secondary system as well. Like as we can see now, we haven't seen any decline in the secondary. The reason is because it's the same cohorts moving up. But once you're starting to see the lower cohorts, we're working through the elementary panel, starting to go into the secondary, we will do it. So we're trying to be proactive and trying to see what can we do at individual schools. Like we have the data school by school and now, and what can we do to retain more of our students from grade 8 to 9?
Now, one of the problems at say one of my schools, Loyola, or for the Garthwood community, is a walking distance. While their school, they have to be bused down to Clarkson, so a lot of just that makes it very convenient for them. So there's reasons like that, geography, but there's other reasons that we can fix because we can't move schools. And like building tracks that we're doing at all these schools makes it better. Adding programs which we've added to various schools brings even people outside our board. I know at one time we used to bring there were like 100 students who just come outside our board into a board because there were programs for that they were looking. So, but it's good that we're doing that traction. Trustee Alves, you had a question?
Yeah, to you, Chair. So I guess my follow-up for the info is if we're seeing net 1,500 to 1,600 kids lost from public to Catholic, do we know what the reasons are other than geographic convenience? Like, my question is, are we losing people to the Catholic board because of programming or perhaps misconceptions on curriculum and what might be taught in public versus Catholic? Like, what do we know more or less?
So, through you, Jim, as I mentioned, it changes from school to school, but one of the reasons is the location. There's not much we can do about that. But other than that, what we have noticed is also the programming does. And what we also noticing is that we find out that is their regional programs, they don't have a limit. They'll take more students. Our students once they are not successful with us getting into the regional program, the family wants it, they'll take that on as well. So that's another reason we're doing. And then overall, I would say that sometimes it's just a choice between the families. They wish that they like to go to the Catholic system rather than staying with the public system in there. So we are working with those schools. What we are doing what we notice is that. So I asked when we started the process that which of our school has the best retention from grade 8 to 9. I asked, we looked at it. You were surprised. The answer we got is Woodlands. Woodlands. Why? Because they're already there in the building. So more and more, what that tells us that once the students become, they know their school, their building, they are in there, they like to stay. Even at Woodlands, they could move. It's not that. But because they're already there, the school, they can. So I think we are trying to also bring now, working with our feeder schools and the secondary schools, say, okay, let's bring the grade 6, 7, 8 into the school. Show them the programs we have offered in those schools. And have them meet with our other students, like high school, grade 9 or 10 students. Ask them to see how they feel about that. We try to do all things like that. And also looking at where we have gaps in the programming. What type of programming gaps we have in different schools. So trying to introduce those ones as well. So I think we're really looking at school by school where we're losing it. What can we do? What are the things why we're losing in those? And then what can we do to make sure we get more of our students.
Through your chair, I think that's great. I've been to a couple of the open houses. I went to the open houses at Tompkin, one at Forest, one through Applewood, where they are incentivizing for lack of a better word, the feeder schools to show kids what it would be like to transition. Just one follow up. I have some friends that work adjacent to the ministry, and there's some conversations about some school boards and the level of international student support that they have. How are we doing when we're looking at attracting foreign, for lack of a better word, foreign students? How are we, is there a way where we can supplement some of that loss with making ourselves attractive to the international population overseas?
So through you, Jim, that's another area of our focus. To see what can we do to attract more of our international students. So before the pandemic, we were around 600 students. And then during the pandemic, we really went down to almost 200 students. So I think we are back up to close to around 500 students now in there. And also that another, more and more of it international students, at least in some countries, they like to participate, but they like to stay back in their country. So through our virtual schools, that's another area we want to expand, offer them that option.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yes, that you can participate and be our student to virtual school. You don't need to be moving into Canada, or some of them prefer to move only for one semester rather than for the whole year. It helps them. So we're giving them all those options and looking at those options to see what can we do. There's definitely room for to grow in that area, because we know Toronto has, I think, almost close to 3,000 students. So definitely there's a more what we can do to attract more students in there. So that's important. And again, we continue to focus on that as well.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Great. And I'm wondering, carrying on Trustee Al's comment of attraction and keeping and retention. I assume, when we fully roll out our regional program for secondary students, I assume that probably will provide more retention.
Yes, through the chair, we're hoping that, because now that we're rolling out that process, because there are a lot of families who simply said, well, I know I want to participate, I could get in, but I just can't get there. Yeah. So hopefully with that, with the equity through that plan, so we're hoping to get more students. In fact, I think and also we're looking at other programs and all that with the cafes. So.
That's wonderful. Trustee Timoli has another question.
Thank you. Sorry, it was a follow-up to my question earlier. I was curious if we are tracking trends in that transition from grade 5 to grade 6, and if we're seeing any trend in enrollment loss at that period, just because that's the middle school switch over for most students. So I was wondering if we're seeing anything happening in that sense.
Generally speaking, outside of grade 8 to grade 9, our retention between grades is very, very high. 96, 97%. Or
Okay. Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Interesting. Good question.
Trustee Davies.
I know I've asked it in the past, but is uniforms a determining factor that we're finding? Is it on the increase?
So, yeah, through the chair, I can respond to it. Definitely with some communities. Say that. I think that's another factor that some of our families move to the Catholic bodies because of it.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Families do. Family background may not be the students background, but families then do.
Mom and dad.
Mom and dad, yeah. So definitely with some of the community in some areas, the parents or the families prefer that in the uniform.
Just a follow-up, just thinking way outside the box here. If we had a community that we think that would be a large factor, and I'm thinking about a more marginalized community, and we offered to supply the uniforms for the first year. Do you think that would allow us to really retain some students? Or is there an area where we think that we should try something like that?
Just to remind me, asking, first of all, we have a policy, so it's not something we can try. It has to come from the school community through our policy, in which they have to go through consulting and then have a certain percentage and then convert a school or try. But then if they decide that financially, then we as trustees could obviously get in and talk about subsidizing that if that was a barrier for which they wanted to try to pass it.
Correct, but as trustees, we could change that policies. That is our intent.
I'm just saying there's a policy.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so trustee Cam.
Yeah, I think trustee
Or
Green.
trustee says,
Everybody.
Trustee Green.
Thank you, sir. I got lost in the shuffle there. Now, a couple of things I just wanted to bring to trustees' attention. And the last question, it's 75% of the parents in that school, trustee David.
No, but we can change the policy, David.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, but okay, so we have a situation where that we had a uniform essential appeal, and that was the community doing. And as you can recall, when supervision came in and minister directive, now it's go to, if you want to wear it, you wear it. If you don't want to wear it, so we got student wearing bathing suit again to school because of that, and that has brought a school that was low moral to a very, very high moral, and it was working very well. So it was about they use this equity piece to say it would not fear for those who couldn't, even though the school had gone and raised money to provide to those who couldn't afford the uniform. They still fought against it, and because of that, now that program is basically if you go into school right now and you see 2 kids in their uniform, it's allowed. So so we have those challenges to deal with. And just through your chair, just wanted to bring, as you talk about international student, there's a plan in place right now. And we already have over 600 back with us. We're working with our former associate director, Scott Morris, and his team. And we also have a team here. They just actually came back from Japan. That they're working diligently to recruit those international students. Director and I was just at the old what do you call it, Path South building recently. We had the fair there, and the place was packed with students, and it was also we also had other folks from other country that was looking in, okay, what we're doing to see how they can maybe send their student here. So that's something that is underway actively right now. So we're going after that piece. And then finally, just wanted to say that Associate Director Gill is right. It's go school by school, because at Gene Augustine, we have saved a bunch of kids, over 300 and something kids was slated to go to the Catholic from grade 8 because they had the regional program. We dropped AP, boom, in Gene Augustine, and we gained back, you have to say 90% of those kids. So it also depends on the program. So that's one of the things now director is looking at, and how we can able to provide certain programs within home schools, home school for the kids, so we can retain those kids. So that's in place right now, because when we saw that what happened at Gene Augustine there, it was just like, okay, it's a no-brainer. Just wanted to just bring that to your attention. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments, Chair. Any other comments, questions? Yes, just sorry. I have back there.
Go ahead.
No, trustee Seth Paul Miller.
Yeah, if
you have a question. Yeah.
No, thank you very much. This is just I was wondering that Catholic board they could run regional programs without limitation, and we cannot do that. We are not doing that. I was just wondering where we are behind from that.
So through you, Chair McDonald, one of the challenges is also we want to make sure we have the space for those students. So some of our schools we just don't have that space, so we can't really open it up to to do that, and their schools, they do have that, they do. But we are looking at all different options for our regional program to see how we can attain more students where we see where we are losing those students to the next level.
Great. Yes, Kimberly, you'd like to add a comment or question?
I add a comment?
Okay.
Through you, Chair. Perhaps looking at retention and thinking of the Woodlands model where we have our highest retention rate, there's a sense of community between the grade 7s and the grade 8s and the grade 9s. And uniforms aside, special programs aside, perhaps looking at strategies to build community, which better aligns with the multi-year strategic plan. We could do that concept, when you drive along the highway and you see this road or this city, it's a sister city of some place, making it finding opportunities to bring the 7s, as the decision is made by grade 8, grade 5, to bring the younger students into the high schools on professional activity days, early release days, really cross-pollinating the 7s, 6, 7s, and 8s with neighboring secondary schools would be a strategy, create the community. It seems transparent. It would seem easy from that point, is a fear I have.
I know I'm over-speaking myself, but it sounds like we should create a retention committee.
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Where we could have these conversations and delegations and input and try to do it. But there is no one solution that solves all the problems, as we know, it's geography. But there are some communities. I know I made a K to 8 school from elementary to middle school model. We kept it in that school, and it creates that community, and they just walk down the street to the high school, so it makes it good. You can't do that in all communities, obviously. I think there's a multi-pronged solution. So maybe that's something we can think about. I'm just putting it out there. So seeing no more questions, and thank you for that comment. Oh, you're just Trustee Cameron, you have a question?
The international students issue is probably not as easily resolved as just trying to get more and more students into our board, because at the post-secondary level, we know that they have shut that number down. So every college, every university in this province has had to make cuts to programs, staff, and I know so many of them who have been affected by that, including families who thought they had children accepted into a particular program only to learn that it had been cut. So I think it's a little bit of an uphill climb for us to thinking maybe those kids, I don't think it's a separate issue, but kids who come here internationally might want to continue on internationally here, but there are fewer opportunities for them. I just think that it's a bit of an uphill climb for us moving forward. The attract and retain thing, I think, is a whole new, not new. We've had this over the years, a discussion about how to do, including issues of curb appeal, right? Let's make the front of our schools look like they're places people would want to come to. And I agree with Kimberly. And I think I've talked to Jaspel about this a number of times, but we ought not to start in grade 7 and 8 for attracting children to look at our high schools, but much earlier than that. So I'll just give you an example. At Humberview, they've got a world-class robotics team, 5th in the world from Texas just last week. They also have, they're called the Alpha Dogs, right? They also have the Alpha Pups, right? And those are kids in elementary school now who are learning what happens with the Alpha Dogs and how do they make their robots. And it's a really good attraction program. The challenge in my community with a place like Humberview is in Caledon East. And this is going to speak to your question about, is it just distance? So Caledon East is a long way away from Humberview, but it's their home school. And we don't have another secondary school we can move them to. Mayfield's full. Anyways, so last year, 30 graduates from grade 8 at Caledon East, 28 changed from our public school system and went to Robert F. Hall, which is right in Caledon East. They just stayed there. And when we review with those kids and those families, why did you jump from your public school system to the separate school? It's distance. They don't want to sit on a bus
Yeah.
for 50, 55 minutes each way when they could walk to the school right here. So we are working together to try to mitigate that a little bit. So thank you, Chair. One question out of all of that, and it's projections. I'm curious, when you tell us the projection number, and I appreciate what you're doing is the hardest job in this room. How do you do that with any sense of accuracy projecting? So what I've been curious about over the last couple of years, do you project those numbers based on the developments in an area? So they're going to build in Calamese 668 homes across from the school. But how many of them are selling? How many of them will close in this next year, even if we're just talking about year to year, when the house prices are so high, when the interest rates are still risky for families? Are you counting just the houses about to be built or projected to be built by developers and builders? Or are you actually calculating in some way what's the average number of homes that'll be sold in a year there?
Through you, Chair, it's actually all of those things. So those baseline numbers, those are totals. But if you were to take a more granular look at those numbers at school by school, we have a database that has every single draft plan in there, how many units, what the anticipated yield is of those units. And those yields are determined based on historical yields that we have seen, and we progress those forward. So, for example, over the last, 5 years, what we've seen is our townhouse yields go up a little bit and our singles go down a little bit, but it varies drastically, you'd say, between communities too. So then the development team, they're in contact with the city, they're in contact with developers, and from there they give us what their expected phasing of the closing of those units are. So we try to project exactly when those homes are closing and how many students it will generate. And then we're also looking at existing community, what the retention rate in each of our schools, what the retention of our existing community is going forward. So you're adding development growth and subtracting the retention necessarily from the rest of the existing part of the community. So it's all those things.
Right. Okay, thank you. And so through you, Chair, I know that I've raised a question around reorg. If you're telling a school how many staff they should hire based on projection, and then a housing development doesn't sell and it doesn't fill out, but you anticipated that it would, then now we've got hiring taking place where we're soon going to release people and have to go to other schools. But it's a mix. It's a lot in your projections that we're relying on to get right so that we can retain people over the long term. Yeah.
So through the chair, if I can just comment on that, knowing that residential development has really gone down. So for the next school year, we have not included really any growth like that. If there is growth that happen to be as part of the reorg, we can always add.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Associate Director Gill. That's a really important move, I think, across the board, so we can stop this reorg challenges. But thank you. I appreciate that, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just add to your point about reorg. I know you and I both had conversations. I see it in a different perspective. You see it obviously projecting a lot of students that don't show, and I have students disappear, and then when you lose, or we need to get a teacher, and because more students showed up, and then that's a hiring problem stuff. And I see our directors online, and I've raised that concern to her, because we need to see how other communities do it better than ours, because it does cause a lot of problems that third week of September, and then in August for the secondary school is what, the 6th week that they can be canceled of classes because of that, and that's really problematic in some of my schools.
Chair, could I add? I'm sorry. I think this had to do with Trustee Al's question as well. So I got invited to go to Robert F. Hall, which is in Calamese, and steals 28 out of 30 kids from the graduating class in Cali's public school last year. They got invited to go there by their trustee because she had asked if she could come to Humberview. She's a graduate of Humberview, but she wanted to see all the trades. So I went to the school. They had 25 sections. So Kimberly would know this best what a section is, and 25 sections of hospitality. It's a super popular program. One subject is drawing so many kids into it. They got a big kitchen. They spend all kinds of money on their kitchen and cooking, and so they sell that magnificently, quite frankly. No, I want to say to them, are you kidding me? Come to Humberview. There's nothing there at Robert F. Hall that compares to a school that's got French immersion, extended French, a Bach 1 program. Every trade you could want to study is there, a world-class robotics program, and on. But it's the distance that keeps getting in our way in a case like that. But I think we could do this. I think we can attract and retain. And I've heard Associate Director Gill talk about we're working on this. We're working with our schools to make changes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm looking around, this is my left. I see no questions. So all in receipt of this oral presentation, that great presentation, approved. So now our budget team can go with these numbers, or you're already going with these numbers, and off to the races and figuring out things. So we're going to go to our last staff kind of report. It's a budget presentation from our association. And it's the Principals, Vice Principals Association, Administrative Staff, and I assume Kimberly Jones are going to be presenting. Do you want to come up right in front here? So we.
Spotlight. Super comfortable. Thank you. Thank you for the invite, but I'm really comfortable here.
Okay.
So through you, Chair, and thank you very much for this opportunity to present on behalf of the Peel Secondary School Principals Association. I first would like to pass on my regrets for Paul Fryer and for Christy Zammit, both of whom will be taking over as co-chairs of PAS going into the 2025-2026 school year. I will be moving into the role of past chair. Meeting with me online here is my colleague Gersh Budwell. Gersh represents PPDPA, so the Elementary Principal and Vice Principals Association.
Gersh has the Toronto Maple Leaf.
Yeah, he's the Toronto Maple Leaf.
See that?
So as an aside, it's going to be really interesting. My family, my bestie best. Her brother's the goalie coach for the Panthers. Her husband leads Maple Leaf Blue. It's a very interesting in the family right now. And they are my family. So it's a very busy, it's kind of fun looking at Gersh's blue over there. So I digress. Here we are. And I apologize for my tardiness. I won't read everything. You have everything in front of you. But really, please try to understand that we grounded our presentation of our budget priorities in your multi-year strategic plan. We actually, every time we had an idea, we went back to the language of the multi-year strategic plan because we really do, we see the direction and we know that in our buildings, we are the ones who operationalize it. So what we did when you go through it is under student achievement. When we talk about increasing mentoring support for vice principals in year 1 and year 2, we're looking at the fact that yes, there are people who are very, very new to this role, and owing to shifting demographics, we have people retiring, we have people moving. The stability that we could achieve by making sure that they are fully understanding of the nuances of operationalizing schools through a mentorship program. This meets the multi-year strategic plan of ensuring ongoing professional learning to remain current in culturally diverse and changing worlds. So again, recognizing and honoring the role that our vice principal colleagues have. Recognizing in math and literacy supports, really, for us, our recommendation would be, as you're making from a system level, your budget considerations is what really truly is going to land on those students' desks. And oftentimes that is time. The collective agreement bounds us, all the collective agreements we work with, bound us to certain numbers in classes. And there is very, very strong evidence, we see it all the time, that speaks to the gaps in literacy and numeracy. And those gaps have, some of them are pandemic hangovers, for lack of a better expression. And it's time that is needed. And that requires money. It requires additional ISSP teachers or literacy teachers at the schools, or even shared across 2 schools, that idea of community, but not shared across a family of school. That said, there has been success in some of the literacy and numeracy initiatives we've had. The DTT teacher, the ministry funded a couple years ago, had success with our numbers as well. So definitely keeping what is working in mind and maybe reflecting and building on it as we go, because it is the success that the public sees in our EQAO data and in our OSSLT data that will help retain these students as well. We really strongly feel that we need to, and again, this is still in the same category of student achievement, we need to prioritize the recruitment of psychoeducational consultants and increase the number of our social workers. Most of you know that I'm at West Credit Secondary School, and we never, and sometimes we have families and students who are struggling for an exceptionally long period of time, and we have limited access to resources. And I'm just one school. So please do prioritize setting aside, again, items that really do translate to meeting the needs of our students and our families and supporting our administrators in their operations. For safety and well-being, limiting the backfilling of acting BP roles. I can let you know that one of my colleagues, Erin Barty, she is a principal at Warren Park Secondary School. She has a cohort of grade 11 and 12 students who had 8 vice principals this year because they were acting roles. At one point, when she was going through the staffing process, she had 2 acting plus herself. So she had to rely on OPC members, friends, to come in and help her through the interview process. That is not a workload that any administrator needs. So again, keeping an eye on how many acting are in a building would be very valuable. We feel this meets the the multi-year strategic plan of providing support to monitor and assist in schools. Also connected to safety and well-being is chronic, and the reason is chronic absences, staff absences. We would encourage a fulsome review of the current health attendance plan. On average, we're looking at over 35% EA absences on any given day and a fill rate of maybe 8 to 9%. There's your student safety, there's your student well-being, and when the administrator is going through, and when they have a revolving door of acting vice principals, you are compromising student safety and well-being. For equity and inclusion, we identified extracurricular funding, increasing it. Just call Paul Fryer. He'll let you know what a bus costs to get Mayfield teams to an event. Again, at West Credit, we don't have OSSTF or ROPSA events, so I am somewhat alleviated of the pressure of funding the buses and transportation. But, you know, I did have one student, a history teacher, wanted to take kids on a field trip. She had a great plan. We honored the boards, get everybody on board. The student requires a wheelchair. She has a muscular disability that prevents her from even having an electric one, so it's push. And the cost of a wheelchair bus for the day was going to be about $650. So if you take that and you average that cost, you're putting the pressure of that expense either on the school itself, on the family itself, or you're putting it on all the students who are contributing to sharing the cost of a supply teacher, transportation, etc. So we covered the cost, but again, keeping in mind that the more we want to get our students out of the school and into the community, it does require money. I've already spoken with EA, so I'll move on beyond that one. And again, we feel that these two meet the multi-year strategic plan because they ensure that we identify the barriers, remove historical and current historical boundaries, and support currently marginalized students to create equitable and inclusive learning environments. I've addressed strategies to promote EA attendance. I know we had one at one point, which we sort of said, hey, if you work for a full month, there was, I can't remember, it was $100 or something like that. We need something that gets these EAs to work all the time, or a policy with teeth that allows us to make sure that we continue to staff our schools safely. We feel we need an increase in school allocations to support our English language learners, our English as a second language learners, staff who monitor the success of vulnerable students, and our ISSP or special education teachers in elementary for those early identification opportunities, and now community engagement. Subsidize school-based permits or allow for piggybacking on community use to allow the school to be open for use outside the instructional time. So for robotics or after-school programming, we feel that if we can figure out a way, yes, we know that renting out the spaces in our schools is a revenue stream. So whenever you look at, you look at kind of eating into a revenue stream, you have to have an alternative on the other side that's going to compensate for the revenue stream, or at least contribute to retention or school need or the multi-year strategic plan. So again, if we're going to find a way to piggyback these opportunities, it would be allowing our schools to host these big banner opportunities in the buildings, which could be a community attraction down the road. Seek partnerships with community groups. I know that the board has already started to do that with some of our community groups. When we look at the football field at Central Peel, the cricket pitch at Turner Fenton, and the work we're doing with Skills Council Canada. So obviously continuing looking for those partnerships. And we feel that this embeds community history and assets and experiences in learning environments, strengthens our partnerships and our ties to community agencies. So going back to the rationale at the very beginning, when considering business cases from the various departments, and I respect the workload on all of my colleagues, and I respect their advocacy for their teams and for their visions. Be mindful of proposals, please, that prioritize student-facing roles, support the people who operationalize, so administrators and staff who work directly with students, or have a day-to-day frontline monitoring role of the instructional program and improving the capacity of educators who work with students. Align funds where the system will get the highest return on productivity, that directly support schools to implement high-quality programming within a supportive environment, school climate lens versus the continuing overwhelming of a number of priorities. So really focusing in on the priorities, that this is for really the time to reinvent. It's the time to reflect on what worked and narrow and focus and make those investments. And that, I guess, really wraps it up. The rest is there in writing for you. I won't go on with my pen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Kimberly. I'll talk more about your presentation. I'll let our colleagues go first. Before I do, I don't think I probably thanked the planning department. You did a great job. I really appreciate your presentation and all the numbers you provide. And thank you. So we have this great oral report. Let's put it on the floor so we can have some conversation. So I have Trustee Clark and Trustee Cameron. So questions, Trustee Davies.
More of a comment than a question. I think the education minister in the last couple of days has worded it differently than how you did it. But I just wanted to make all my colleagues very aware that we're hearing it from our staff, but in a roundabout way, we're also hearing it from our boss. and that is focus on in-class and focus on students. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you. I'll just go around the table. Oh, okay. Trustee House?
Thank you, through your chair. To Trustee Davies' point, I think we are. I think we have, and I think, you know, if we look at our board from the time the ministry took over to where we are now, I think that we've trimmed from the top and increased from the middle everywhere we can. But my question was regarding the comment that we heard in the report by Kimberly regarding the VPs. Can we have a bit of clarity? Can staff give us some clarity? If we can't, that's fine. But do we know, do we have a bit more context as to why something like that might happen, or you know, situations where we have so many VPs in the year, so many temps? Can we just elaborate on that?
Active VPs, you mean?
Yes, just trying to understand the context.
I see Associate Director De Silva's online.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So, I don't know, I'll pass it over to you, Associate Director.
Yeah, through you, Chair McDonald, actually, Associate Director De Silva is online, so maybe he can provide some clarification in regards to that situation that was mentioned, to see what happened in that case.
Doesn't need to be that. Just in general.
There is.
There is.
Good afternoon, everyone. To excuse my grogginess, I did have a small medical procedure today, but I happened to join the call, and here I am. So happy to answer the question. But could I get a repeat of the question itself, because I'm unclear exactly about what the question is.
100%.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair. So definitely shout out Associate Director Paul so for joining the call. Thank you for doing so. So my question is, in the oral report we heard a moment ago, we were described a scenario where a school had, you know, upward of 8 acting vice principals in one calendar year. I realize we likely don't have the specifics for that instance, but I was just hoping staff might be able to tell me and the board just a bit more about, you know, how something like that would happen. Well, is that something we see often? Was that a really unique experience? Why would something like that take place?
Sure. So thank you, and through your chair. Yeah, for a variety of reasons. Typically, an acting position is placed in on a leave. It could be a medical leave, it could be a maternity leave, it could be a number of different leaves with respect to that acting position. And to be honest, what happens is if the leave is extended beyond the capacity of that either retired individual who's in the position being there, if it extends beyond 50 days, we then have to then regenerate and get another acting, potentially retired individual to backfill that position because of the restrictions around how many days an individual can work while in retirement. Typically that does, yeah, so typically that doesn't happen in situations where we backfill a vice principal with a teacher who is truly acting, but there are limitations to the responsibilities and operational needs of the school that they can do. For example, supervision, disciplinary pieces on staff, because they still belong to that union group. So there's a variety of different reasons, but for the most part, where I've seen situations where it's one over another, and it usually happens in a principal piece where it's been a retired person use their days, then we need to backfill again with another, and so on and so forth. And it is tough. There's no question about it. And we try to mitigate as much as we can. And then the uncertainty of understanding when the leave is going to end also complicates matters as well. I'm happy to take any further questions from that.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. This is the answer that I thought we would get, and I'm glad that we got it for the record. I was listening to Minister Calandra speak today about leaves and certain boards and payouts during leaves, and I think that a lot of this is above our for lack of a better expression, above our pay grade. Right? These are things that are bound by collective bargaining agreement and ministry acts and employment labor standards and ... But I appreciate the response for the record, and thank you very much again, Associate Director De Silva, for joining and for the response, and for participating today after having gone through a medical procedure. Thank you.
Thanks. No problem.
And let me just add to that comment, because there's a middle school that has principals that was gone through this similar kind of situation. And so the question is, well, you can bring an acting in who will maybe be another VP, but then that person's not experienced as a retired person. So it's balancing, trying to train someone for a short term, or do you bring someone in who's experienced who may want to help the school continue the growth of our strategic plan. So this is the balancing act, but obviously it's creating challenges. There's 2 schools that I'm aware of that's happening at, and I think it will take the comment from Kimberly to say that is a concern, because it does cause challenges for everyone in this. Any other questions? Yes, Trustee Clark.
Actually, I kind of have one. How much do the staff know about the circumstances surrounding the, these acting, vice principals and acting principals? It sounds like maybe some of the schools weren't really aware of what was going on, or like, because if there's a problem like this, there's really nothing that can be done about it. So
yeah. So I'll jump in, and then I'll hand it over to Associate De Silva. Associate Director Silva. So all leads are announced to the school community, right? And then there's a new principal or vice principal in there. Obviously, the reasons for it are not, because that's confidential and stuff. So that's the extent. But I'll hand it over now to Associate Director Silva.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and through you, Chair. Not much to add there. I think Chair McDonald has shared, really, when situations do arise, they are confidential in nature and typically reside around situations in human resources. So typically, most of that information is confidential, but in many cases, staff do know what's going on in a way, but really it is to be kept to themselves, just to protect the privacy of the individual and the staff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to understand in support of school morale. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and that's so you can't usually say why an individual's on leave. So plus or minus morale, but that's why we always like to bring in these experienced retired trustees, principals or vice principals, because they are great and experienced and help work on the morale, but also the academics and all our strategic plan drivers, as well as what the operations drive. So. Thank you for the question. So, Trustee Cameron, you're next.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a comment about what we know this does to our community, though, right? When we have these replacements, and I think that's what Principal Kimberly is talking about. It affects our community, it affects our schools, it affects our parents who are not happy with consistency. And I appreciate, notwithstanding that this is almost an impossible situation to avoid, but where we can, we would hope we will. And I don't know the solution. Somebody in HR with more knowledge than I will need to fix this one. But I've experienced it in my community where people have called and said, "What?" Mayfield was one of them, where we went through 3 short-term principles, and it really drove people out of their minds. So we're asking for consideration for all involved in this. Thank you, Chair. Oh, and just if we're through Friday between 11 and 1 at West Credit, there was a plant sale.
I didn't get the email.
Yeah, I saw it. Trustee McDonald and I have been there.
That's 9 to 1:30.
Oh, 11 to 1:30. So Trustee McDonald and I have been to this sale the last couple of years together, including I almost got a breakfast out of him in between. Almost.
True.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's not just plants. The cinnamon buns are
the
butter tarts.
Brad was gone. Is this? West Credit. Brad was gone for about 40 minutes. I couldn't find him. He was in the baking section.
Through you, Chair. If you're so inclined, we are having our annual plant sale. We're doing it a little different this year. Our team is having plants and baked goods this Friday between 9 and around 1:30. And we really encourage you to be out of the parking lot by 1:30 because the 42 buses start to arrive and you'll never make it out if you don't. And then, of course, Just Plants, I believe it's next Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday.
Okay, so, but no baked goods, no cinnamon buns, no butter tarts, no brownies. No baked goods.
Friday only is what you're saying.
Friday is the
Yeah, Friday, yeah.
Wow, thank you, Stan, because I would have been remiss if I missed it. Perfect. Okay, trustee, Chair Green, you have.
Yeah, I personally, I just want to thank you for your presentation, Lily, and Mr. Bagwell, who's here also for the elementary panel. Because we met and we talk and we understand the need. And I take the message back to the director and the senior staff. And there was one time there was nobody in the pool, and you may have seen that has changed a little bit. We do have some people in the pool right now, and you're going to see. And I'm open, Associate Director Sir Red, not speaking out of term, but you're going to see some changes come in, especially preparing for September. And not only that, you will see some changes. There is going to be dates that's going to be set up for training and mentorship to be provided to them as we discussed before they go into the school. So some of the stuff that we spoke about, and I am making sure that those things are happening. So you will see some changes. It's a work in progress. We still need to have more people in the pool. Paul will tell you that, but it's a work in progress. But it's on the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Green. Any other? Okay, Trustee Promola.
Thank you. Just really quickly, Kimberly, thank you so much for your work representing the principal over these last couple of years. You've just done incredible work. I'm always so grateful to hear from you and you and your co-chair. And so thank you for all of it. And so job well done. And can't wait to continue working with you. So very good. That's it. Thank you.
Good. Do we have any more? Okay, so I'm going to say my comments. So I want to thank you, Kimberly, and your team. I know this went together by a lot of great minds to put some great recommendations. Chair Green and I have been talking about this for, I think, over the last 2 months, that everywhere and every time we go into schools, we see that the multi-year strategic plan is at the root of a lot of conversations. And your presentation is aligned with that. And that is one of the reasons we created this multi-year strategic plan, is to push it out to the organization. But it also comes back in use at budget time so that we can focus the needs of our system along what we determined as the 4 key drivers that was inputted by the entire community. And that's the staff, the parents, that's trustees, and everyone who participated in making this great plan we have. So I want to thank you for tying all your great recommendations and examples to why they're needed to the strategic plan, and can't thank you enough for that. So that being said, all those in approval of this oral report, so pass. Okay. I guess where are we now? I guess we're at the there's no communications, there's no motions for consideration, notice of motion. So someone want to put this on the floor? Trustee Davis wants to put this on the floor. Second by Trustee Cameron. All of the favorite adjournment. So adjourned.